We have a monitoring system with sensors on the track, with cameras, and people dedicated in race control checking track limits. We focus on the places where a rider can gain advantage by going outside of the track to make a faster line. Any part of any one tyre on the green outside of the track is considered out. There are rules that are quite simple, but there are different circumstances. So during practice and qualifying, any track limit triggered by our sensor or our cameras, the lap is cancelled. So practice and qualifying, your lap time is cancelled for track limits. In the race, there's a situation where we allow a certain number of mistakes. The criteria during a race is there advantage gained or not? So if a rider goes out during the race and clearly loses a position or time, is a disadvantage, it's not counted because the penalty is going out, he lost something. If a rider goes out and clearly gains something, maybe passes another rider or gains a lot of time by going out, it's an advantage gained. Automatic penalty, immediate. Doesn't matter how many times. Immediate because you gain something. The times where a rider goes out, touches the green, and it's really close. You cannot see if it's an advantage or not an advantage. They stay in the same position. This is what we count during the race. It's considered a mistake. You went out by mistake. At 3 times, they get a warning. At 5 times, they get a penalty. So there's a tolerance of how many times you can go out. And I'll repeat again, if you didn't clearly gain or didn't clearly lose, these are the only ones that count. A rider can make a mistake and accidentally run off, but you cannot keep doing it and using a different part of the track than all the other riders. That's why there's a limit of 5. On the first lap, we appreciate all the riders are together, especially turn 1, but other parts of the circuit in the first lap. It's very easy to be touched by another rider. If a rider is forced off the track, as long as no advantage is gained, the first lap doesn't count on the count of 5 track limits because we accept the rider's usually been touched by someone else. The first corner of the first lap we watch very closely. If you go out, you cannot take advantage from this. So if you're forced out but then pass some riders, you'll get a penalty to change your position. If a rider is touched and the only thing he can do is move out to avoid a crash, we want him to avoid a crash. It's very important that the riders are able to ride safely in a group and not be worried about the rule of losing something. As long as they don't take unfair advantage, there's no penalty. On the last lap of a race, doesn't matter whether on your count during the race, whether you have 0 or 1 or 4 or whatever, if you go out in the green on the last lap and it affects the race result, it means you are closely fighting over a position with another rider or riders, very close, that you go out and that affects the race result. So either you don't lose anything or you gain something and maybe a better line for the next corner or something like that, and you cross the line at the finish ahead of the other rider. It's a penalty, change position. If a rider goes out on the last lap and is close with another rider but loses something, not a penalty. If a rider is completely alone, 3 seconds away or more than 1 second away from the riders around him and just touches the green without obviously gaining something, it's not a penalty because he's not closely riding with another. So there's some criteria that the stewards have to evaluate. They use a concept called striking distance. Is the rider behind close enough that he has a reasonable chance to pass the other rider? Always, it's the decision of our stewards, who are expert people in this, to decide is that a possible passing place or not.